Rich Rising, Rich Rising. Today we are continuing our journey on New 260, where we are reading a chapter of the New Testament every single weekday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. There are 260 weekdays in the year, and there are 260 chapters in the New Testament. How divine is that? And so we are continuing our journey today with Matthew chapter 11. Matthew chapter 11. In this chapter, we're going to be seeing John, which is Jesus, John the Baptist, which is Jesus's cousin, question if he's actually the one. We're also going to get into hierarchy in the kingdom. That's a new concept for me. I hadn't considered that there was hierarchy in the kingdom, but this chapter reveals that. And then we're going to get into Jesus scolding entire cities, and we're going to try to understand what that truly means. All right. So get your Bibles ready. Turn to Matthew chapter 11, verse 1. And it came to pass, when Jesus had made an end of commanding his 12 disciples, he departed thence to teach and to preach in their cities. Verse 2. Now, when John had heard in the prison of the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples and said unto him, Art thou he that should come, or do we look for another? So he's questioning Jesus, or Yeshua, and saying, Cousin, are you actually the one? Verse 4, and Jesus answered and said unto them, Go and show John again those things which ye do hear and see. Interesting. So how are they going to show John when John is actually in prison? So that's just interesting, something to consider. Verse 5, the blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf are hearing, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospels preached to them. And so I'm very interested in looking at the poor, that this is who the gospel is for. But we're not just talking about poor in terms of finances. We're talking about poor in spirit, which are those who are humble enough to actually receive the message. The Sadducees and Pharisees, the religious leaders, they're too puffed up, right? This is why Yeshua says, beware of the yeast of the Pharisees. They are too puffed up to actually even receive these teachings. And Yeshua, at the end of this chapter, is going to explain that these teachings are simple and we actually overcomplicate them, right? So Yeshua also talks about the physical, but actually is speaking in the metaphysical. This is why he only speaks in parables. And so if you actually look at everything that Yeshua says and says there's got to be a deeper meaning to this, remember, we also learned in the last chapter that there's a difference between Jesus speaking and Christ speaking, right? Christ is the one who is trying to translate these divine principles into things that are palpable or understandable for man. But then there are times when Jesus is speaking, right? Father, why have thou forsaken me, right? Whereas Christ is, I and the Father are one. Those are two different speeches, levels of speech and thought. So when we look at verse 5, the blind seeing, what could that mean? That can mean not just the healing of people with blind eyes, but it's actually people who have misperception, right? Who don't see life as it actually is. And then when we think about the lame walking, the lame are those who are procrastinating, who aren't doing the work that they were created to do. The deaf hearing are those who are know-it-alls. They have so much filled in their ears, or they think they know it so much that they actually can't hear anything. It's their arrogance that stops them from receiving wisdom, right? Then the dead raised, those are those who have given up, right? Though they may be breathing, their body may be alive, they have completely given up. And the poor having the gospel, those who have a poverty mindset, those who don't recognize the abundance of God, could be the metaphysical meanings of these 5 also physical meanings, right? Again, Yeshua only spoke in parables, and this is one of the most powerful things around his speech, right? Similar to like you hear a rap song or even R&B song, mostly rap, and you hear it 10 years later and you're like, oh, that was a bar. I didn't even hear that the first time, right? You thought you only heard something on the surface level, but there was a double entendre there, and you get it at a deeper level. I wish I could pull a lyric off the top of my head right now. Let me see. I can't think of a lyric right now, but this is the power of speech. And Yeshua was trying to, again, translate these spiritual principles into something that man could understand. This is why he constantly used parable. All right. Verse 6. And blessed is he whoever shall not be offended in me. Right. In verse 7, and as they departed, Jesus began to say unto the multitudes concerning John, what went ye out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken in the wind? What does he mean by this? This meaning is that many people at that time were, and even in today's time, are swayed by popular opinion and the newest thing, right? So, oh my goodness, there's people who are out here prophesizing. I'm gonna go over here. There's people over here who are doing this now. Oh, I'm gonna check that out. Oh, there's people over here doing this. This is the new thing. And so Yeshua knows, based on the nature of man, that many of us are swayed by popular opinion and the newest thing that's out instead of going back to ancient truth. Ancient truth. Now, what happens is that many people call ancient truth new age, but it's really just going back to the ancient truth. We're really going back to the old age, to the foundations before everything got convoluted by religion. Verse 8, but what went ye out for to see? A man clothed in soft raiment? Behold, they that wear soft clothing are in kings' houses. So we talked about clothing being a representation of emotional states. So what does Yeshua mean by soft clothing? What could he mean? Those who have soft emotions, those who don't have hard emotions like anger, hate, etc. But those who are gentle, soft in spirit, loving, right? They are in the king's houses, right? And those are actually the luxurious emotional states that, and the rich emotional states that we want to stay in, as opposed to the hard emotional states. Verse 9, but what went ye out for to see? A prophet? Yea, I say unto you, and more than a prophet. For this is he of whom it is written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. And so that's Malachi 3:1. I want you to write that down, Malachi 3:1, and Isaiah 57:14. Verse 11, verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women, there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. So Yeshua is saying that from man, not gender, but mankind that has come through the womb of woman, John is at the top. John the Baptist is at the top. Okay. Meaning that John mastered the flesh. John let go of, John cares little about the body, right? He's eating honey and insects, right? He's not afraid of death, right? Many of us are afraid of death. He has no ego or selfishness in him. So this is why John has risen up, because his desire and hunger for spirit and truth is higher than any man has ever demonstrated. But watch this. Notwithstanding, he is the least in the kingdom of heaven. He that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. Whoa. Wait a second. There's a hierarchy in the kingdom? Yes, there's a hierarchy. There is those who are born of women, right? Who elevated to the highest level in the physical. That's John. He is right here. But then above that, there is the kingdom. And even the lowest in the kingdom is greater than John the man. So what Yeshua is saying is that his cousin didn't truly tap in to the spiritual depth. And on top of that, John has not had the message or the gospel of the kingdom that Yeshua came to preach. So John did the best that he could based on the Old Testament, right? John did the best that he could in terms of getting in alignment with truth based on what he had in the Old Testament. John has not heard the gospel of the kingdom. John has not heard the gospel of the kingdom. So John was like the best NCAA basketball player or football player. I guess the best NCAA, I think that's the Naismith Award, the Naismith Award of basketball, and it's the Heisman for football, right? You could be the greatest in college basketball or college football, but you could end up being the worst in the NBA or not even making it to the NBA or NFL. That's what Yeshua is saying. So there actually are levels to this. Everybody type, there are levels to this, right? And we're trying to get to the highest level. So that's a new understanding for me. My imagination of the kingdom was a very flat entity where everyone was considered equal. but I'm noticing that there are actually levels in the kingdom. I believe that there's believers in Jesus, there's followers of Jesus, and there's disciples. We covered that in the last chapter. So there's actually levels to this. And it's not saying that somebody is more important. It's just saying that they have been given more stewardship, they've been given more responsibility, and they have a deeper understanding. But it's not saying that somebody and other people are more important than you, right? So this is really, really key. Like, let's just take Thanksgiving, for example. The turkey is big, it's the centerpiece, right? But if you don't got that mac and cheese and you ain't got that greens, which are only sides, then the whole meal don't come together. So every single thing is equally important, but others may have greater responsibility and magnitude than others. Okay. Verse 12. And from the days of John the Baptist till now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. This is interesting because I also perceive the kingdom of heaven being this very peaceful place. But Yeshua has said that it has been overtaken by violence. So there is violence happening in the kingdom based on this scripture. And I haven't fully grasped what this means, but perhaps if we know that Yeshua is always speaking to the inner, that there is a violent nature within man that he is speaking to. This is part of the reason why John is in jail, right? This is part of the reason that the Pharisees would stone people on the steps of the temple. That's a violent spirit or nature in the kingdom. So if the kingdom is within, Yeshua is saying, yes, basically Yeshua is saying that there is still a violent nature in man. The kingdom is within, in man, right? Luke 17:21, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and there's still violent nature in there. Okay. And we see violence all throughout the Old Testament. The book of Joshua is pretty much a book of genocide. We see Moses kill somebody. We see Cain kill Abel. So we see violence all throughout, and that nature has not left man, and it's still dominating the kingdom. So the kingdom, if we know it's within us, it's really speaking of our spirit within us, right? It's really speaking, do we have the fruits of the spirit, which haven't come up yet? We'll get to those later on, right? Do we have the fruits of the spirit, or do we have the opposite of the fruits of the spirit, and where we are on that spectrum? And it's not an either or. We're on spectrums, right? Sometimes we're loving, sometimes we're hateful. But how do we stay in the vibration and the frequency of love as much as humanly possible? Okay. Verse 13, for all the prophets in the law prophesied until John. And if, again, John speaking of the Old Testament, this is what John had to pull from. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come, right? Elias means the Lord is my God. Verse 15, he that hath ears to hear, let him hear. Okay, we know that faith come by hearing. Verse 16, but whereunto shall I liken this generation? It is like unto children sitting in the markets and calling unto their fellows and saying, we have piped unto you, and ye have not danced. We have mourned unto you, and ye have not lamented. What Yeshua is saying here is that this generation is constantly looking for signs on demand. Heal somebody, do this, do this. And even when they see signs, they still lack faith. So how are you going to believe in something unseen, which is true faith, when you don't even believe things that you see? This is what Yeshua is saying here. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they say he hath a devil. And then the Son of Man came eating and drinking, right? They talked about Yeshua and his disciples not fasting like the Sadducees and Pharisees. And they say, behold, a man gluttonous and a winebibber, a friend of publicans and sinners, but wisdom is justified of her children. So what he's saying is that based on the evil nature and the violent nature within man, either way you see it, you always see it as negative. John is fasting, eating insects and honey. You see it as negative. I come and I'm having breaking bread with sinners and having wine, etc. You see it as negative. So you're not really looking for what is right and what's wrong. You are just, anything that is not the way you think, in alignment with the way you think, is negative. And right now, the big word in religion is demonic. That's demonic. That's demonic. That's demonic. Astrology is demonic. This and that. Well, they found Yeshua using a star, correct? And in Genesis, It says God put these lights in the sky as signs, right? But anything that is not in alignment with their belief system, they perceive it as negative. That is their nature. And that negativity is the perception from within. It is the lens through which they look out at the world. So even if something is actually positive, they see it as negative, right? The only thing they don't see as negative is themselves, which is interesting. Okay. So, but wisdom is justified of her children. So you are always going to know a tree based on its fruit. And as we look at Yeshua's ministry thus far, he has only done good. Okay. But just because you're doing good in the eyes of God does not mean that it's going to be perceived as good in the eyes of man. Verse 20. Then began he to upbraid the cities wherein most of his mighty works were done, because they repented not. So they literally saw with their eyes, something seen with the two physical eyes, right? And they still didn't believe. And upbraid means to scold. So now he's scolding cities. And so I used to question this. Why scold an entire city? Because these cities really represent states of consciousness, right? When Jonah was supposed to go to Nineveh, etc., and Sodom and Gomorrah, etc., these represent states of consciousness. It's not that every individual in this city is evil, bad, or doing wrong and unrighteous. These cities represent states of consciousness, okay? And so, verse 21, woe unto Chorazin, and that word means the secret. Here is a mystery, uncertainty. Woe unto thee, Bethsaida. Okay, that means the house to hunt or to fish. Okay, Beth always means house. So Bethlehem is house of bread. So Beth always means house. Okay, for if, and remember, house also means what? Mind. Okay, house metaphysically means mind. For if the mighty works which were done in you, right, in your city, in your mind, had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in the sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, verse 22, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre, which is rock or faith, right? Similar to Peter, right? Rock or faith. In Sidon, which means fishery, hunting place, at the day of judgment, than for you. Verse 23, and thou, Capernaum, which means village to be sorry or to comfort, which are exalted unto heaven, shall be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. Remember, Sodom is connected to the word sodomize, and sodomize means to go against nature or go against God. So these cities in their names actually are reflective of the states of consciousness that they represent. Verse 24, but I say unto you that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for thee. Verse 25, at that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent. So what does he mean here? From the know-it-alls, and hast revealed them unto babes, those who are innocent, those who are humble, those who are curious, those who are open, those who are receptive, right? That is us. We are here to learn. We are considered babes because we know we don't know it all. This is why we are studying to show ourselves approved. And what Yeshua is saying, that it's so simple that children can understand it. And children naturally understand how we are supposed to live on this earth. They move in more harmony and more peace than we do. But we, because we think we know it all and think we have it all figured out and aren't open, we have created confusion, and God is not a God of confusion, right? And so, even so, verse 26, even so, Father, for so it seemed good in thy sight. Verse 27, all things are delivered unto me of my Father, and no man knoweth the Son but the Father, and neither knoweth any man the Father save the Son, and he to whomsoever the Son will reveal to him. So if we look at the Father as the mind, as the creator, or as thought, nobody knows your source, right? What's going on in your mind in the way that you do as the Son, right? And as the Son, you are manifesting this life that you have. And we need to truly understand the relationship between our mind and the manifestation. And nobody can know what's going on inside of you the way that you do. There's an intimate relationship between the Father and the Son, between the mind and the manifestation, right? Because the mind is what gives birth to our reality. The mind is what gives birth to our physical reality. A lot of people don't understand that law and that relationship. But once you understand that it is an intimate relationship, that my as above, so below, right? On earth as it is in heaven, right? Heaven is where the Father dwells. That is the mind. And on earth is our material experience. So heaven is our mental experience of life, what's happening within us. This is why the kingdom of heaven is within you, right? And then outwardly is the manifestation, or which is represented by earth. And nobody knows your relationship to the Father, to your mind, in the way that you do. We all have our own unique, individual, intimate relationships. Some of us are focusing on that relationship. Some of us are unaware of that relationship. Some of us feel like the Father has abandoned us, that we are either an orphan or we are fatherless, and it is not true. We are all connected to the source, and we are here to come back to the Father, similar to the prodigal son, and to develop and strengthen that relationship. And nobody can know that relationship in the way that you do. I'm this oldest of three brothers, the oldest of three brothers, and we all have a unique relationship to our Father. Verse 28, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Verse 29, take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, right? That means humble. And we don't define humble as, oh, I'm just weak and I'm a sinner and this and that, I'm not worthy. That's not how we define humble. Humble is being fully aware of your power as a divine being, but being willing to come down to lift others up. And that is what Yeshua is essentially saying here. Take my yoke upon you. I know my true source, and my true source, my spiritual source, is stronger than any human source that you pull from. And so because of that, take on my yoke and let me lead you and give you some rest, because I have this spiritual source that is greater than any human source that I ultimately want you to tap into. As Yeshua says, you will do even greater things than these. And so this is what he's saying. Until you understand that within yourself, until your relationship with the Father is as strong as mine, then come, let me take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Yeshua was basically saying this is light work for me, right? Because I understand my intimate relationship with the Father, which is the source of all. Man is relying on sources of man, right? You think your job is your source of income. No, your job is a stream of income. God is the true source of all. God is what orchestrated everything for you to have the talents, the gifts, and the strengths that you have. God orchestrated all the relationships. God orchestrated your upbringing. All of that has been orchestrated. So your true source has always been God. But then we say that, oh, this is my income source, my only income source. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's an income stream. God can pour into you in many ways, right? This is why we ultimately want to have multiple streams of income, but we know that the source is always up. Water always flows down, right? We know that the source is up, except when there's evaporation and steam goes up, right? Then it comes back down, but water naturally flows down. And so we want to tap into the true source and never forget that. When we do that, then our yoke will also be easy. And when we can use our strength, our spiritual strength, to support others in their journey. All right. Well, I hope that this reading blessed you. We're going to continue on to chapter 12 the next morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm excited for what's to come. I hope you have a blessed day. Type your greatest takeaway from today's reading in chat, and I will see you during our next reading. Peace.